connection with nature, and how information overload impacts self-fulfillment. Less than 1 in 10 high school students report that they don't use social media. About 1 in 15 only use it a few times a week, once a week, or monthly. 3 in 10 use it multiple times an hour. Similarly, 3 in 10 high school students felt so sad or hopeless almost every day for the last 2 weeks during the past 12 months that they stopped doing some usual activities. Nearly 4 in 10 said they felt nervous, anxious, or on edge at least most of the time during the past 12 months. The Vermont Department of Health records these from their youth risk behavior surveys. These statistics raise a question surrounding the need for adolescents in Vermont to get off of phones and out of doors, as a high influx of stimuli, like information, is known to cause anxiety and depression, according to naturopathic doctor Alan Logan. When beginning my research project, it was clear to me that there was a problem with technology usage among youth in Vermont, and I hypothesized that it was due to the constant flashes of new information available with every scroll or tap. And I couldn't help but wonder, what impact does this have on the developing sense of self-fulfillment, and how could being connected to nature help support growing self-fulfillment and mitigate the negative effects of technology? This question guided my initial research on the topic, showing me what has already been found in the field. For some context on this issue, the use of technology, particularly social media, has changed the way humans connect with nature and impacts brain chemistry. Doctors Alan Logan and Eva Selhub note a decrease in time spent outdoors due to technology use, leading to increased mental health issues, especially in adolescence, because spending adequate time in nature has been proven to diminish symptoms of ADHD and cortisol levels. Sherry Turkle, a professor at MIT, highlights that although technology has made a significant contribution to people's lives, it has had an adverse impact on human relationships and brain development, reshaping how people interact with the world compared to the past. Because of this shift in humanity, it is important to look into the specific factors of technological use that are especially risky, such as information overload. Now, before I get ahead of myself, who here has heard of the term information overload? Well, the definition that I will be referencing is from cognitive psychologist Daniel Levitian, and it is the onslaught of information that confronts us each day, and this limits our ability to focus on multiple things at once and causes unwarranted stress. This can be through phone use or media consumption in general. Problematic internet and phone use, such as overconsumption, lowers the quality of life for adolescents, according to University of Lausanne psychology professor Nassim Maselli. Excessive use of digital media due to easy access leads to mood problems, anxiety, and low self-esteem. However, Bernhard Jungwirth argues that information overload can enhance education for students and citizens in an essay published in the Journal of Adolescent and Adult Literacy. While on the other hand, U.S. environmentalist Bill McKibben found that spending time in nature, rather than being immersed in information, helped him gain important insights about himself and the world. Additionally, professors of health science at the University of Hawaii at Manoa explain that indigenous people view themselves and nature as connected through kinship, which provides healing properties for their physical health and happiness. There's also been much concern in Vermont around adolescent abuse of social media. According to BT Digger, an independent digital news organization, social media use poses such a risk to youth that the state of Vermont sued Meta, the company behind Facebook and Instagram, on the stance that these platforms were designed to be addictive and cause harm to the mental health of young people. As you can see, there's frequent discussion surrounding addiction to social media and its impact. However, not much is said about how the constant flow of information affects adolescents' sense of fulfillment and connection to nature. Information overload is not a conscious choice like social media overuse because of the naturally addictive design of an algorithm. It has unique effects that need further examination. Therefore, understanding how technology affects adolescents' connection to nature due to information overload is crucial to determining if it is affecting their self-fulfillment. Raises the question of whether less digital information would lead to more fulfillment, which led me to my ultimate research question: to what extent does information overload hinder adolescents' connection to nature and self-fulfillment? To effectively close this gap, I followed popular research methods for studying connectedness to nature and self-fulfillment. I aligned my method with a study from Vining, Merrick, and Price that included questions such as, do you see yourself as a part of nature, and what words do you associate with a natural environment? This study also included scaling questions to rate fulfillment in activities like volunteer work, parenting, and social networks. From this, I created a survey that was sent out to 250 high schoolers in northeastern Vermont. The survey was made up of 28 Likert scale questions, broken up into 4 sections: ideas around self-fulfillment, feelings of connection to nature, feelings surrounding information overload, and what happens when these factors intersect, all of which were rated on a 1 to 5 strongly disagree to strongly agree scale. The survey also included 5 short answer questions, gathering their input on the topic as a whole and their feelings towards nature in the digital age. When analyzing the data, each respondent was given a total score by adding up their Likert score for each question. For example, if a respondent were to answer 5, strongly agree on every question in a section, they would have a score of 40 for that section. Linear regressions were then performed with the self-fulfillment category as the dependent variable and the nature connectedness, information overload, and combined factors categories as independent variables. A frequency table was used to analyze the short answer questions to find words that respondents used most often to describe their feelings when in nature or their feelings during excessive screen time. So what did I find after this analysis? To reiterate, my research question is, to what extent does information overload hinder adolescents' connection to nature and relative self-fulfillment? The survey had a 19.6% response rate, meaning I had 49 responses. These linear regression models show the correlation between answers of the different sections of the survey. Figures A and B are statistically significant with p-values of 0.059 and 0.008 respectively. Strong correlation between feelings of self-fulfillment and an established connection to nature, shown here on figure A, could demonstrate the need for nature as a scaffolding to self-fulfillment, but could also be due to chance and external factors such as age, socioeconomic status, and family life. The same can be said for the significance of the relationship between self-fulfillment and the combined factor questions shown here on figure B, and shows that people who feel more self-fulfilled are more able to acknowledge information overload's effects on the combined nature and self aspects. While figure C is not statistically significant, it shows that while these respondents do not do anything to mitigate the effects of information overload and often perpetuate it. And that correlates with the study by Vining, Merrick, and Price, as they found that often when people are disconnected, that correlation shows the disconnect between self when immersed in information overload, as similar results were seen in Vining, Merrick, and Price's study, with respondents saying they felt connected to nature and part of it, but not in actuality immersing in it or interacting with it on a regular basis or as often as they wanted. Table B shows keywords from the free response questions and their prevalence. The more a word was used by multiple respondents, the more significant that word may be in helping to understand attitudes around adolescent connection to nature and self-fulfillment. From the short answer questions, we can draw that the majority of respondents feel like spending time in nature helps them feel more connected with themselves and gives them a greater perspective, which relaxes them about trivial worries. However, they reported not being able to spend time outside because they have homework or they just don't want to give up the screen time at the end of the day. So even though they would like to spend time outside, they're not prioritizing it. Interestingly, many respondents answered that they think we as humans are supposed to be outside more than we are from looking at history and the positive effects of nature. Almost every single respondent described feeling at peace or that they instantly de-stress in nature. Another almost unanimous agreement was that they feel better or at their best when immersed in nature. While these findings could be helpful in spreading awareness around youth ideas about themselves and nature, there were some limitations to this research. The low amount of responses made it difficult to obtain a significant understanding surrounding the younger adolescent population, as the majority of responses were from the 15 to 20-year-old age range. Future research should take younger adolescents into consideration. As mentioned previously, there are external factors that could have impacted the answers given by respondents. The survey was only sent out to students from one school due to time constraints and non-responses from facilitators. The nature of adolescence also plays a considerable factor in possible response bias, acquiescence bias, and voluntary response bias. They're generally more likely to be afraid of judgment or only respond because they have a prior interest in the topic. In conclusion, this research could be beneficial to both adolescents and parents, as well as fill a wide gap in the nature connectedness field. Adolescents and parents could benefit from the mindfulness that goes into reading about this topic, and the thought could stay with them the next time they continue to scroll on a sunny day. Educators could use this research to prioritize more time outside and incorporate it in part of a PE or health curriculum, where adolescents would be equipped with the power to overcome information overload, having been provided with the knowledge of possible combatants. This research could also work as an extension of Dr. Sherry Turkle's main argument, as it has much the same claim that adolescents are increasingly enveloped in social media and technology, and that impacts their ability to create both intrapersonal and interpersonal relationships. Although a small contribution, this data shows that there could be a real correlation between adolescents' time spent in nature and their relative self-fulfillment, especially confirming the original hypothesis that information overload could decrease adolescents' time spent in nature and impact developing self-fulfillment. Full works cited page is available upon request. Thank you for listening. Are there any questions? Yes.
Did you take seasonal changes and inconsistent weather, especially in the New England area, consideration?
I did not look into that, no, but that should be a point for future research. Yes?
Did you find any research that talks about maybe different age children in nature? I always think that younger children need to be outside and outdoors. Did you find anything in the research that talks about different ages?
I found some things regarding Montessori schools and alternative education for younger children, and how that is important and says much the same thing as the other sources that I was reading. But it was basically, that it should be consistent all throughout education and not just younger. Yes? I didn't look into that, no. Yes?
What are some confounding variables that you might have wished that you accounted for in order to go back and do it again?
Probably I would look more into gender and see how what effect that has. I saw a little bit, but I would look into that more. Thank you.